Yeah, of course. How I define environmental racism is when communities of color are faced with higher exposure to pollutant, environmental hazards, or toxins at a higher rate than their white affluent counterparts. And also, just on the flip side of that, unequal access to clean green spaces, healthy foods, and not being a part of those conversations and policies that put those systems into place. So most people understand that, in a modern society, there are some level of pollution exposures that happen, but it's unequally being shared by communities of color, happening here in St. Louis, happening nationally, and also globally as well.
Yeah, when I personally think of environmental racism, first, I recognize that it comes in many different forms. This can look like building oil lines through the sacred land of indigenous people, from allowing communities to be harmed from lead poisoning or radioactive contamination, which are both very prevalent in the St. Louis area, mind you. In fact, one of my colleagues put it so well. His name is Hop Hopkins, and I'll share a link to this piece that he wrote. But at the Sierra Club, we frame it a lot. Environmental racism and environmental justice around the lines a lot of you can't have climate change and environmental injustices without sacrifice zones. And you can't have sacrifice zones without disposable people. And you can't have disposable people without racism. When we pollute the crap out of our environment, that's a way that our community leaders and entities are saying to those people that we're not invested in you. We need people to know that all people are sacred of life, and the people and all over the area call this place home. And in order to treat people kindly, we need to treat our places and resources not as disposable, but actually give life to them.
It comes down to political power and lack thereof. So there's an acronym that you will find if you take property in law school. It's called NIMBY, not in my backyard. So there is always, like Madeline and Ashton indicated, there is some level of pollution that's going to occur for us to have a society. If you want to have electricity, until they develop all and use renewables, you're going to have some level of pollution because of that. If you want to get from point A to point B in your car, there's going to be some level of pollution. If you want a bag of chips, there's going to be some level of pollution from that. It's just, where are these facilities being located, and where is the waste being put, and where are investments being made? And time after time, the answer is that investments are being made in wealthy white communities, and the pollution, the cost of those investments, the cost of our electricity, the cost of our bag of chips is being put in neighborhoods that don't have the power to go to their representatives and say, not in my backyard. No, that trash transfer station is not going in my backyard. No, that highway is not going in my backyard. Put it somewhere else. So they do, they put it in somewhere else, and that somewhere else is in the backyards of people of color and people living in poverty. When we put our plastics in recycling, well, that doesn't actually get recycled in the US. Most likely it gets shipped over to some poor country overseas where all of our junk gets piled up there. It doesn't get piled up in our backyard, it's in theirs. When they put a trash transfer station, recently they were trying to put a trash transfer station in the center of Dutchtown in South St. Louis. Not a white community. They would not put that in the middle of a white community. No one would ever think about it. So whether you're looking at it in national, international, or locally, it's always the same. It's just not in my backyard.